All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call to order the Charter Commission of the City of Cotulla. We're going to begin this meeting at 6:05 p.m. We're going to start with the roll call. Let's see here. Jacob Hearn present. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce this name. Miss Hossel?
Miss Hasson, Leonardo.
Okay, Miss Hassel.
Pronounce it.
She's present. Patricia Rodriguez is not going to be able to make it. Marisol Gonzalez is here. Noe Rodriguez is here. E.T. Page
Sure.
is here. Sandra Zertucci and Manuel Sanchez Jr. are absent. All right, we're going to move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone will please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next item on the agenda is the swearing in of commission members. Everybody present has been sworn in already, so we can go ahead and move on to discussion and possible action. Oh, right, no, that's the alternate commission members.
You can take action on appointing people as alternates if you want to, even if they're not here. Or you could designate the people that are here as obviously you and ET, of course, because you're chairman and
Right.
vice chairman. It's up to you, or you can just pass on that and do it at the next meeting.
What do you think, E.T.?
I'd rather not exclude anybody that's not here in case they've got a desire to be on it. If they're not
Well-
interested, we'll find out.
Yeah, they're actually on it. It's just that if somebody else doesn't show up and they're here, then they get to vote. That's really kind of how we did it the last time. But we can just go. That.
So do they get sworn in
Yeah,
on the day?
yes,
that-
they do.
Okay.
They're just alternates, so kind of like a jury. You've got alternate jurors.
Okay.
They sit there and they watch the whole trial, and if somebody gets kicked off, they step in and they get to.
It's easier to have a quorum.
Yeah.
You got some extras standing by.
Right. So if
What is a quorum with our normal number?
it would be five. Yeah, would be five.
What you mean?
So if one of your regular members doesn't show up, but an alternate does, they sit in there and they vote and they do everything. And then if that regular member shows up the next meeting or some other member doesn't show up, that alternate can continue to do it. It works well. But if there's not a desire to do that, there's no reason to do it. We're not doing it.
No, I don't think we really need to do that. I think we can go ahead and skip that. Is that all right with everybody? If you want to vote on that?
Fine with me.
Ayes? Nays? All right, we're going to go ahead and pass on that until next meeting. 6, approval of minutes for the meeting held on Thursday, January 18th, 2024. Has everybody had a chance to go ahead and read through all these?
I have. I make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Can I get a second?
I second.
All right, Ms. Hassel seconds. And we'll pass that on. Minutes are, sorry. All in favor?
All right.
All right.
Nays? Okay. I wanted to put this in here real quick before we go to the workshop meeting. I wanted to add something. Ms. Gonzalez, you emailed us.
Yes, I did.
Do you want to present that?
I emailed asking, because I know our meetings are on Thursday, if there was any possible way that maybe they can be changed to a different day. I know the Women's Club, their meetings are on Thursday, the Garden Club also. So I know there's some people that would be interested in being present, but they can't. And it's only once a month, I know, but maybe on that month.
Bi-weekly schedule.
We're not, it probably won't happen again.
They won't because, like I mentioned, they've been established for a long time. They've had their meetings like that, so.
I'm just saying it probably won't turn up on another first Thursday for our meeting.
Okay, got you. Okay.
I wouldn't mind
I think
avoiding
in the
it.
past, we had the meeting right before the council meeting, which would work for me because I'm not generally around on first part of the week. Not that I have to be at every meeting, but if you want me here, it's hard to, because I'd have to go right back to San Antonio. Otherwise, I'd just stay here for 2 or 3 days. But you can set the meetings anytime you want.
At the last meeting, we set the schedule that we were going to be meeting bi-weekly on Thursdays at 6 p.m. until we conclude business. So, like ET said, we're not likely to do that, to run into that again. When is the city council meetings held again? They're on the third.
Second Thursday.
Okay.
So that's why it's more convenient for me because I got to be here for that. So I just get here earlier.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's instead of changing it from instead of doing it bi-weekly by each week, starting last week, we can try to schedule this, and we can change the schedule to the second Thursday of each month after, which usually concludes at what time do they usually conclude?
They start at 7,
Oh,
so you'd have to have it.
We'd have to be before
We're
that.
never out of here before about 9:30, so you don't want to be.
yeah, we'll be before that.
Yeah.
So
I'd suggest we do the second and fourth.
the second and fourth Thursday. Still at the 6 p.m. We should be able to knock this out. Knock the meeting out in an hour or so before. Before
We
they-
should.
So let's go ahead and
Sometimes it's gonna take longer.
And the women's club is the first Thursday.
The first Thursday, yes.
okay. All right. So I'll make the motion to go ahead with that with the second Thursday at 6 p.m. Second and fourth Thursday of the month at 6 p.m. Can I get a second?
Second.
Noe seconds. All those in favor?
Right.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we're gonna move that new schedule over now. Okay, workshop meeting. Charter Commission will conduct a workshop meeting to discuss and work on the proposed home rule charter for the city of Cotulla. The Charter Commission will accept public input and provide an opportunity for citizens attending the meeting to be heard. Steve, Mr. Pena, do you want to go ahead and,
Yeah, you would just announce the time.
I'm sorry?
You'd announce the time that the workshop
Okay,
started.
your workshop begins at 6:13 p.m.
So one of the purposes of the workshop meeting is that you can talk about anything you want to talk about. There's no reason to have, you don't have to have an agenda. So the open meetings rules, they apply as far as people get that quorum and all that. But if you want to talk about anything you want to talk about, even if it's not about the charter, you can. So what we're doing here tonight, you all have a PowerPoint. I know ET's familiar with it, and whoever was on the council. I'm sorry, the Noe. I don't know if I think you've seen this before.
Yes,
Right?
yes, sir.
So it's really kind of the same one we did the last time. It's just kind of overview of the charter process. For anybody who doesn't know, the city of Cotulla is a type A general law municipality. And under Texas law, there's 4 different kinds of municipalities: type A, type B, type C, and home rule municipality. As far as I know, I have never researched it. The city's always been a type A municipality from the date that it was incorporated. And under the laws that exist now, you have 5 council members and a mayor. The city of Cotulla has a place system, which means that the individuals who run for mayor or city council are elected by place. That doesn't mean that they represent, you're still all at large, but you're given a place. So place 1, place 2, place 3, place 4, place 5. And I think the purpose of that is so you can stagger your elections. So every 2 years you vote for either the mayor and 2 council members or 3 council members. So that you don't have the whole council coming up for election every time that there's a municipal election. And for those of you who may not be familiar with it, city type A municipalities have a meeting, have an election every year. So every year there's going to be an election in the city of Cthulhu. That's the first Saturday in May, unless that gets changed. That's the way that it works. So at the end of the preceding year, there's certain things that go on, notices that get published, applications for ballot position, and it's pretty routine. If anybody's interested in seeing how that works, the Texas Secretary of State's office has an election calendar that they publish every year, and that's what the city and all cities go off of. So there's not a whole lot of difference between a type A and a type B. Type C commissioners form of government is generally 3 council members. So you've got 2, they're all considered commissioners, but one of them is the mayor. And in that particular setup, the mayor actually votes. And in those cities, the commissioners are more like the commissioners at the county level. They like run a department. They might run the gas department. They might run the water department. They may or may not be paid. It's kind of a holdover of an older form of government that you see in smaller communities. Asherton, for example, is type C. But there's larger communities that are type Cs too. The city, I believe, of I get them mixed up. There's Rosenberg and there's another one with an R that's right next to it. They went home rule and they'd always been a type C and they kept a type C. So it's like this city of 40, 50,000 people or maybe more, and they only have 3 commissioners. That's what they wanted, because when you create a home rule municipality, you can choose any form of government permitted by law, which means that if it's in the local government code and the state constitution, like you couldn't form a dictatorship or a communist, it has to be something that is allowed by law. But as long as it's allowed by law, you can pick anyone you want. Like if you wanted to be a type C, you could. If you wanted to have 10 council members, you can have 10 council members. If you want your mayor to vote, you can have your mayor vote. If you don't want your mayor to vote, you can put it in your charter. The charter that was proposed last year basically didn't change anything. It was the same setup that the cities always had. Place system, 5 council members, all elected at large. Mayor, they're all elected every 2 years. And the mayor does not vote except in the case of a tie. Okay? So the mayor can't say, I move to pass this ordinance. Can't do that. He can't second it. He can't vote yes or no on it. Now he can tell everybody in the room what he thinks about it, or she thinks about it, but they don't get to vote. Now, if you pass a home rule charter and you want your mayor to vote, then the mayor can vote. It's up to this commission to prepare a document to submit to the city council that would grant that authority. There may be reasons why you want to do it. There may be reasons why you don't want to do it. You've gone 100 and when was the city incorporated? 1911 or something? Yeah, you've gone 120 3 years, and you didn't need it. Why do you need it now? And I think that there's political reasons why you don't want your mayor to vote. Because Americans say, well, I didn't vote for it. It was, right? Sometimes you have to give him that cover, right? If the council does something he doesn't want him to do, he may not want to be forced to vote yes or no on something that the president of the United States doesn't vote, right? He doesn't. He's just the president, right? He doesn't introduce legislation. He doesn't get to impose taxes. He doesn't get. He's the executive. So that's what your mayor is. Your mayor is your executive. There's probably reasons, as many reasons why you wouldn't want him to vote as why you would want him to vote. City of San Antonio, place I'm familiar with. The mayor gets to vote. But there, the city's run by the city manager, the whole city. It's a city manager's budget. It's a city manager sets. But now the council has to approve these things, and they can hire and fire the city manager if he doesn't do what they want him to do. But that's actually what they call council manager form of government, or a weak mayor. So if you're creating what you've already got, the setup that you have here is a strong mayor. Okay, the mayor is the chief executive. He's in charge, but he's limited because he doesn't get to propose legislation. He doesn't get to, he doesn't get to vote on things. But when you go through the budget process, right, in a type A general law municipality, which is what you have, it's the mayor's budget. Okay, it's his budget. If he wants to get rid of a department and doesn't put it in his budget, then he can do that. Now the council can say, no, put it back. But he could do that. In general, the law says that your mayor is your chief budget officer, right? So when you see that budget that comes out every year in September, or actually comes out in August, that gets filed with the city, you could call that the Mayor Javier Garcia's budget if you wanted to, because that's what it is. It's his budget. It's nobody else's budget. It's his budget. You can change that. You can make somebody else a budget officer. There's things that you can do. Now, when you create a charter, what you're basically doing is writing a constitution for the city of Cthulhu. So, under federal law, under state law, the state of Texas has a constitution. The United States has a constitution. So if the voters approve a charter for the city of Cthulhu, it really in effect is a constitution. Now there's a limit on what that constitution can contain, because it can't be in violation of state law, right? So you couldn't open up a casino, you couldn't legalize marijuana, you couldn't legalize polygamy in Cthulhu, or whatever thing you wanted to do that would not jive with state law. But what it does do, and this may be something that may be a little bit difficult to grasp, when a general law city passes an ordinance, okay, animal control, right? It has to go to the health and safety code, and it says a type A general law city can do this. So it has to go back to the code, to the state law, and say this is where we're getting our authority to do this, right? A home rule municipality doesn't have to do that. It can't pass a law that contradicts state law, but it only looks to the general law, which is what Cthulhu operates under now, for any limitation. So they may say, well, you can't, for example, the city of Cthulhu, if it has a 1 mile, what they call an extraterritorial jurisdiction, the ETJ. Okay. It can't say, well, we want a 10-mile one, right? Because the law says no. If you've got a population of this is what you have, right? So those are the kinds of things. I know these may sound like things that may be a bit confusing, and I'm going to try not to confuse you tonight. But those are the things that you might want to think about. There is some literature that I provided up here if anybody wants to go home and read about charters. Feel free to do so. But let's go through the process on can you advance that to page 2? Or if there's a way that I could do it, maybe. Do we have a clicker? So you've got page 1, and then page 2 just kind of goes over the types of government, right? And then page 3 talks about self-government. Okay. So there's no independent state of Cotulla. It is a municipal corporation that exists under the Constitution of the state of Texas. So it has a right of self-government, but it only has a limited right of self-government. It doesn't have a unlimited ability to do anything that it chooses to do. So on page 4, you have the sources of the rules on self-government, which are state law, state constitution, Voting Rights Act, federal constitution, federal law. Okay, and then it talks about what I said earlier. General law cities, which is what we are now, can only do what's authorized by either the Constitution or specific statute that exists. Home rule cities look to the general law for limitations on their power, as I said earlier. And then there's the example, you couldn't have casinos or legalize marijuana. Do it. Now, interestingly, there are initiative and referendum, which would be something that would be allowed under this charter. The city of San Marcos, I don't know, I'm not sure when they did it, but they decriminalized possession of certain small amounts of marijuana, which conflicts with the penal code. And the attorney general was in the paper today. He has sued him, saying, "Hey, you can't do that. We're not going to allow you to do that." Now, the attorney general could just look the other way and do nothing and let that exist. But those are the kinds of things that you have to be concerned about. Even if you have a charter, you don't have an unlimited right to do things. Okay. So on page 6, it talks about a general law aid, duties, and power of the council. So if you go through this whole process and come back with the same charter or a very similar charter to the one that was rejected last year, and you adopt a type A general law municipality, there are things that would still be the same. For example, the removal of a council member, etc., and the things that are set out in the what is now called the local government code. It's been called other things in the past, but that's what we have it now. So right now, you're under local government code. Your city officers are your administrator, secretary, treasurer, attorney, marshal, and engineer. There's actually a question about whether the administrator is really an officer or not, because it's not talked about in the state constitution. But for our purposes, we do consider the city administrator to be an officer of the city. Okay, move to page 9. Talks about home rule. So it refers you to Article 11, Section 5 of the Texas Constitution. You have to have a population of 5,000 or more. Citizens must vote. City may determine its own population, which the city did do. And according to the number of municipal, I believe it's water connections, the way the TCEQ counts them, the city determined it was in excess of 5,000. I think we probably need to do that again. Make sure that, that we can substantiate that if they're ever challenged on it. We have appointed a commission on page 10. Commission prepared a charter for submission in a general election, yes or no. Now, my interpretation of the law is that if you give the charter to the council and they go, you go back to the drawing board. Or can they say, well, I don't really like this and I don't really like that. Can't tell you what to do, but if you don't do it, we're not going to approve it. And maybe you go back and you come back with a different item. Now, for example, here, your city administrator's here tonight. You probably will have some meetings where maybe the mayor shows up and he can talk. He can go up there and say, hey, I'd like to see this. I'd like to see that. You don't have to do it. He and the council picked you all, and he doesn't like the 10 of y'all. Get another 10 and have another charter till they get something that they want. So even though the commission, you're more than merely an advisory. Whatever gets submitted to the voters has to come from you. Okay, council can't go back and rewrite it for you. All they can do is this or this. That's it. And so that's why when you come here, why we have open meetings laws, why you're sworn in, why you take the anti-bribery oath and then the oath of office just like everybody else does. By the way, that's the same oath that a police officer takes in the state of Texas. And anybody who's elected or appointed takes that. Your county commissioners, your judges, all of them, they take the same oath. So you've taken it. So you're official. You're a commission member, and you have more than advisory abilities. So you may hear people call you a committee. You're not a committee. You're a commission, and there's a big difference. So the mayor can appoint committees, and they can meet anytime they want to, and you don't have to post it, and you have to do anything because they're just advisory. Now, most cities, I know if you look at larger cities, that there are different committees, and they tend to have more of a structure to them. Personally, I haven't seen them work real well. And I think part of the reason why they don't work real well is because you're having an election every year in the city. So that council member who wanted it, well, he's gone, right? That committee that they had for dogs, well, he's gone, that's kind of the end of the committee, right? So those are, I don't think they work real well unless they're for a very short period of time and then for a very specific purpose. For example, I don't recall, we have a 4th of July committee here, right?
We did. We had an advisory.
Yeah, so yeah, you can do that. Okay, that works, right? So I don't think that they're very effective, and I kind of think they're a waste of time. Now, in larger cities, they do work, because you do have more continuity there. You've got more staff. You can keep things. One of the problems I think that smaller communities have is keeping track of all the things that they're up to, because what we refer to as municipal lawyers as institutional memory, which means is they did what? You know, where are the notes? Where's the records? Where's the, you know, it doesn't take too many people moving out of town or deciding they don't want to do it anymore or dying or whatever, you know, and you just see a disaster, you know, nobody knows. Well, we just always did it that way, right? Yeah, but you know, I mean, it becomes a bit of a problem. So essentially, your process, and if you want to see exactly what has been written about home rule charters, again, those books are available. I can provide you with copies of the literature. I've read them. I don't think they're terribly helpful, but you know, if you feel like you want to have more of a background in it, you can certainly do that. In fact, I think I'm going to give those to David and just have him at the city. And if you all want them, you can go by there and look at them. All right, so we're now on page number 12, charter drafting considerations. How do you remove council members? How do you fill vacancies? These are things that would be in your charter. How many members do you want? Can the mayor vote? What are the duties of the city manager, investigative authority, annexation elections? Who is the budget officer? And I think we've touched on that already.
Yeah, Mayor.
You can't do anything with your elections except what the election code says. You know, so you're going to, in your charter, you're going to talk about it, but it's got to mirror what state law says. So you can't have an election every 6 months or give them. Now you could have longer terms, and there's some hoops that you kind of have to jump through in order to do that. I don't know that you want to do that. I think a 2-year term has, again, for 123 years has kind of worked, you know, and if part of your job is to sell the public on what you're trying to do, then the more continuity that you can show, say, hey, look, yeah, we're doing this, but we're not going to see a great deal of change. There may be some pluses to this. There used to be a lot of pluses to being a home rule city, but the legislature's been chipping away at that for many years because they're always unhappy with the city of San Antonio, the city of Houston, the city of Dallas, and the city of Austin, who are all home rule cities and do things that the legislature doesn't like. For example, the city of San Antonio a few years ago, actually, I think they had a proposition. They got approved on paid sick leave, and they implemented it, and they got sued, and they ended up having to withdraw it. So I think it aggravates the state legislature because they are one political party, and people who live in big cities tend to be the other political party. So they're doing this all the time, you know, to fight and see who. You can see that with the issues at the border, the sanctuary cities, the things you hear about in the news. They don't really apply to Cotulla, but you're getting drawn into it. So when they start cutting back authorities, those affect everybody. Now there are some laws that are limited to. They can't say this only applies to Houston. But they'll have a law that says, you know, for a city in Harris, Missouri, and whatever county with a population of less than this.
Make it very specific.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like, come on, you know who they're after, right? That's called a special bill, which is actually unconstitutional, and they do it all the time. So our local government code is full of them, and our bracket bill, you know. For any city in LaSalle County that's on interstate within 1 mile of Interstate 35, and you know has a major river as a border. I mean, you know they write silly stuff like that, like you can't figure out what they're up to. But it really doesn't affect what you're doing here. Okay, so the other things that you might want to look on 13 referendums and issue just recall. Your planning and zoning, you do have to have a planning and zoning commission. Currently, we only, that all goes to the city council. Budget process, financing, removal of officers, creation of city departments, civil service. That really doesn't apply here. That's mainly fire and police, which we don't have either. You could have an ethics commission if you wanted to. I don't know why you didn't one, but you could. You get to page 14. Charters finalized, commission votes, council votes. Election must be held on a uniform election day. Every registered voter must be mailed a copy of the proposed charter at least 30 days before the election. We did that last time. People, whether anybody read them or not, I don't know. State law, state's commission shall prepare a charter. Each subject must be voted on separately. In practice, that can't happen. Vote on charter adopted, it only be amended by vote of citizens. I think the charter we have now, it's been a while since I looked at it, but I think it had provision in there for charter review commission. I know cities that passed charters in the 40s and have never touched them. The city of Alice, because I've looked at that charter and it's very quaint what they call certain things. You know, so I mean, they may have done something to it, but you can tell when it was written, right? They're in the city and city San Antonio. In fact, my law partner Frank Garza, is actually on the charter review commission right now for the city of San Antonio. So some cities require it every 10 years. I don't like to do things that have a strict timeline for the city. Because again, that whole idea of people come and go, different priorities, you don't want to have something in there that says every 5 years you shall appoint, you know, because then it goes by and it never happens and nobody knows why it didn't happen. And people get elected and they go, well, I wasn't in office when they did that. And there's a steadily goes downhill with the excuses about that. So what I try to do is create a document that gives the council the ability to do it, but it's not mandatory. So if they decide they want to do it, then they can do it. But you don't have people say, well, it says right here, you're supposed to do it. Why didn't you do it? You know, I mean, and that happens. You know, that happens all the time, you know, and in all governments. City, school, county, different federal agencies and things of that sort. So we're not going to have any of that. I don't think you should have any of that. I think it just makes it complicated. The city has a competent staff, but there's not a lot of them. And you don't want to overburden them with a bunch of things that they have to keep up with. Okay, so on page 16, I did make some changes. So we're not looking to try to get this done for May. They could conceivably have an election on November the 5th, which is your national presidential election. You would have to have 2 elections in 2024, which means you'd have your regular city officers in the first week of May. And I think it's May 4th this year. If it didn't want to do it, the next general municipal election on May 3rd. So, of 2025. As I was talking to Jacob earlier, I mean, there may be reasons why you would want to have it in November, because if people are going to vote, they're generally going to vote in a national election. So you'd have more participation, you'd have more people show up to vote. There may be reason why you don't want to have it in November. You know, there's an additional expense. It's not prohibitive, but it does cost the city every time they have an election. Anyway, so moving on to 17, what are the next steps? The commission develops a draft charter, invite public and community leaders to provide input, approve charter to send to the council. Council may approve, voters must receive a copy, and elections held to approve or reject the charter. Okay, so probably page 18, 19, and 20 are probably things that you might want to reflect upon. Why do we have a commission? Because if you had everybody in the city of Cthulhu here tonight trying to come up with a charter, you'd never get anything done. You have been picked because you are people that have either expressed an interest in doing so, or elected officials believe that you have the capacity to do it, the interest to do it, and that your input would be valuable. Or maybe you're just somebody that'll show up at a meeting. I don't know. You know, I mean, so there's any number of reasons why you might have been picked. Council approves or rejects. You know, these are things we've kind of already covered. They can send it back. I think generally they just say no and then they appoint another commission. But you could conceivably, because there's no time limit on how long this commission's going to be around. I've seen it where they give them 6 months. We didn't.
That's
do
what I was
that.
going to ask you. Like, so basically, in the event that we go through all of this, we get it passed, we get it voted in. At what point does the city or the citizens have, you know, hey, we don't like the way this didn't work out the way we thought it would. We regret the decision. Whatever. Let's go ahead and start working on another one. Is there any kind of time limit that these things are supposed to?
No, in fact, I talked to my my partner Frank about that very issue last year, and he, you know, the law's kind of unclear. I mean, it doesn't. There's not a lot of guidance there. His opinion was, you can take those same people and tell them to go out and do another one. You know, the mayor chose not to do that. I think there were people who wanted to be on the charter commission who weren't on the last one. So he wanted the ability to appoint different people, which is fine. That's what he does. He's the executive. He typically would appoint him, but he allowed the council members to say, "Hey, we want these people," you know, which is great. So the more participation you have, the more buy-in you have, the more legitimacy it has, and the more you can say, "Hey, look, you know what? Any one of you people, if you'd want to have been on the commission, you might have been, or you could come to the meetings or public meetings or broadcasting them, you know, don't go out there and say you don't like it and you never even read it, or you don't like it because somebody told you it was bad. You know, take the time, investigate it, understand it. That was a criticism last time that it was rushed. It wasn't rushed. There was an article in the Free and Oasis Current that said that the city manager was going to run the city. There couldn't have been anything more false than that. But I think a lot of people, you know, I think it's human nature to like a good story. Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story, right? The city manager will not run the city if this particular charter is approved. Now you can create one where he does, but I don't think that's what the council wants. And I don't think that's what the citizens want. And honestly, we've had a city manager ordinance here for a long time. And the city manager kind of runs the city, but he's not your
There's still check
budget.
and balances.
He's not your budget officer. You know, the council doesn't hire people. The city manager hires people. City manager gets rid of people. Now I can tell you that any time anything of importance comes to the city, it comes here. The city manager is not going to go out and get involved in something where he or she thinks that the council needs to weigh in. So I think it's worked well. You have the ability to, and if you have the ability to go out and the charter, so they're all out there. Go, Pearsall has one. Go look at it, their charter. Hondo has one. I don't know whether Divine has one or not. I think they do. You can look at theirs. You can look at
Pleasanton,
yes,
Pleasanton.
yeah. You can go see what they have. The city of Cuero was the city I work with. You know, we've actually helped them with some of their charter stuff. You know, take a look at these things. They tend to be around for a very long time.
Are there a certain number of workshops we have to
No.
conduct?
No.
Sure.
You just have to put a document together that you all agree on, and you have a vote, and you send it to the council. Now we were pressed last time because we had cutoff dates to get it on the May election. But, you know, I think for those people who are here tonight and those that are listening in, you know, the document's going to be sent to you whenever we have a document to submit to the council. So you're going to get it in the mail. You know, if you're a voter, I'm not sure how we did it last time, but there were hundreds of them that got sent out, and so, you know, I think there are people who are going to come out and they're going to not want it, and I told the mayor last time that was going to happen, and it did happen, you know, so. You know, I think part of your job here is to go out and kind of sell it, you know, talk to people. So what would you like to see? You know, there's people who understand what these things are. You know, the one thing that we didn't do in the last charter was to have the recall, where you could actually recall an elected official from office. My thought was you've only got a 2-year term anyway. You know, the best recall is to vote them out. I did talk to my law partner about it, and he said, well, if you're going to do it, you can put a provision that says you can only do it in their first year. What you don't want to do is recall them in the second year, and there's going to be an election, and so you have 2 elections. I mean, that's not a wise use of taxpayers. So with that said, you all have a copy, if you didn't already have it, of what we had put together last time. I think that the Charter Commission last time met many times without me being there. I don't need to be there. You know, I think you guys have open conversations, decide what you want to do, and, you know, I can come if you want me to come, you know, and it's up to y'all to decide how you want to do it. You've got staff that you can ask. Mr. Wright has the certified public manager. What is it?
CPM, yes.
Yeah, and I think the city secretary's doing that as well. So they're aware of this stuff. I know they've read that stuff.
See, I think one of the things that we were confused about the last time we did this was we didn't know who was to promote the charter. We didn't know how to get the word out because we just we were reluctant to do it because in essence we thought that
You didn't know if
we
you
weren't
were
supposed to do
within
it.
rights to do it. That's another question. So to build up, to go off of that question, like, you know, can we hold a big, you know, deal out at the park somewhere or something like that where we invite a bunch of people, hey, come out, let's come talk about this thing. Not that we would, but could we do something like that?
Would that be a meeting?
As long as you
Would that constitute a meeting or a
as long
forum?
as you post it, you know, if there's going to be a quorum there, social gatherings. You know, I think that the commission, you know, y'all are not politicians, you know, at least not yet. You know, but you're in kind of a quasi-political role here because this is your baby. You know, whatever gets sent to the council will be what you decide, not what I decide. You know, my job is to kind of help you through the process, give you something to look at. If you want to come up with something completely different, that's fine, as long as you can get the votes to get it approved. And I think once it's done, then you're free to go out and promote it. You know, as far as forming a political action committee, you know, to let, you know, Charter 2025 or whatever. While you're doing this, no, you shouldn't be doing it.
Okay.
But once you're done, you're just another citizen out there. You know, it was approved, it's up for election, you can campaign for it, subject to whatever restrictions there might be on that. And I think that was part of the issue that came up last time. I don't think that the council understood, or maybe they did, but there was some, and again, the timeline was compressed. and you had some people that came out against it and were able to sway the vote. You know, and I don't know if the council had acted. They can't come in here and have a rally during a meeting, but they're free to go out and because some of them were being elected. They said, hey, yeah, the mayor had some signs up at his restaurant. Or, I don't remember seeing a whole lot of stuff being done, and it probably doesn't require a lot, but I think part of it is to get the
Public
message
perception.
out. I mean, when the stuff appeared in the paper, I never saw anything that said anything. So there are people say, well, why didn't somebody from the city write? I don't think the city can. In fact, the city of Catula couldn't spend money to promote the charter, but the elected officials of the city can go out and campaign and do what they want to. So public awareness. This is the second time through the process. People are more familiar. They understand. They kind of have an idea what they're doing. And the more time you spend on it, I think giving people to the ability to come here and provide their input. So having said all of that, we do have some people in the.
That's exactly what I was about to come up to next. I'm glad to see we have some people in the audience today. Has any of y'all heard anything or have any thoughts on what's been said so far for any of us? Go ahead. Mm-hmm. Do we want to get them? If real quick, if you want, you can come up to the podium, and that way anybody listening at home, they can hear you on the microphone.
So I think the main issue was that I wasn't sure what the reason was for this change. What's the benefit to the city of Tula? Because you're saying that it was pretty much the same as the Type A municipality. It's pretty much the same exact format. So I don't see what the benefit is.
So there's some provisions in the chapter 43 of the local government code that talk about annexations. And I know the city was looking years ago, not that long ago, to looking at some of the industrial districts around here. But the county has done it. They've gone out and said, hey, we need to get every tax dollar that we can. We've got millions of dollars of equipment out at the Parga plant or whatever plant that is, and get those on the tax rolls. Now, the city can, if you are permitted to annex without consent, not residential, right? But it's still allowed where you can annex or create utility districts. And there's something called a pilot payment, which is a payment in lieu of taxes. So when you go into Corpus Christi, all those refineries that you see when you're going in there, they're not in the city. And there's a reason they're not in the city, because they don't want to be subject to zoning laws, but they're all paying taxes, right? Because they're getting city services. If you've got a big plant out here producing natural gas or whatever they're doing, they're sending the people that are working there are probably people that live in Catula. If those people live in Catula, they're receiving city services. The owners of the plants are benefiting because they have a workforce that's available to work out there, but yet they're paying nothing to, for example, road maintenance. Like you could take that money from a payment in lieu of taxes and fix some roads. You could run water lines out there. You could do other things. Now, is there a huge ability to do that? There is a guy named Roy Martin, who's related to all the Martins in town. And he actually worked for Valero for years, and that's all he did was negotiate with taxing entities for these kinds of programs. So they're potentially there are tax dollars out there that are being left on the table. The city has pretty good services. We don't have a fire department. We don't have a police department. Our roads are a lot better than they used to be. We need another water well. We need all these things. And I think that that's one of the impetus, and because basically we met with these guys, with Target and some of the other ones. Are like, you can't do anything to us.
Right.
Come back and let me know when you can, And I think that was part of what the reason was why the city wanted to be able to have some of these powers that it currently didn't have. And we have a 1 mile extraterritorial jurisdiction. So when you go to the boundary of the city of Cotulla, and it's kind of this blob looking thing, it goes out 1 mile.
Right.
You can only annex in that area, right? But there's some abilities, for example, when the city annexed south of the Nueces River, and what we call the KMB development, which is now where you have the Loves, where you have the Arby's, where you got some truck repair facilities.
Right.
Those are all tax dollars that you're getting, okay? And those tax dollars come back into the general fund of the city, which are used to keep your taxes lower, which are used to pay for things that you wouldn't be able to pay for but for that having occurred.
So in essence, this is a way to supplement that budget in order to kind of keep
It
at
gives
least
you more,
tax rates
it gives you
where
more
they're at,
flexibility, I guess.
To meet
that demand.
right.
I know that Pearsall has it. I think that South Texas Electrical Co-op up there, I think there's a payment in lieu of taxes. It's probably millions of dollars. I mean, I don't know what it is. They brought in Walmart, they brought in HEB, those are all in the city. I mean, they built the Walmart when I was in high school, which was 50 years ago, almost, and, that it's still there. That HEB. These guys come in, that's the other thing. You get a sophisticated developer, you got a big company, and it's this little podunk town, they probably have a stagecoach still running through the place, They're wanting to deal with an entity that's run correct.
Right.
The level of sophistication, which has improved remarkably, in the last 20 years. There's always room for improvement. Look at the way the city was run in 2000 versus the way it's run now. Look at the way the county is run.
Right.
Now, there's a lot of reasons why they're different, mainly the Eagle Ford Shale. But look at the quality of things that you have now that you never had before. And I think when these companies come in, the HEBs of the world, whoever they might be, right? They want to know what they're going to get if they invest money in this city. And the more that you can show them, hey, look, this is what we have, this is what we can do. We're running this city the best way that we can. That may make the difference between deciding to put it here or deciding to put it somewhere else.
It gives us a little bit more leverage. It gives us more, not necessarily leverage, but negotiating power to say, hey guys, we really, really want you to invest your company, our town, our city. All of our citizens have been really wanting, this business to come in here. We got a Chick-fil-A truck that comes by, once every couple of months right now. Hey, Chick-fil-A, we'd really love it. And here's this is us showing that we as a city are wanting to, or really get our stuff together to make sure that, especially businesses coming into town or potential businesses coming into town, that they're actually going to see a way that they can invest in here and it being a lasting investment.
You've got 23 hotels, I think. You may have more.
I thought there were like
A
30.
couple of $1 million a year they pay in hotel occupancy taxes. That wasn't there before.
Right.
That's all because somebody came in and decided to do something.
Cause it's legal.
Yes, sir.
That's why the motel's right here.
But
Yeah.
John,
It doesn't have nothing to do with the charter or nothing.
no,
No.
but John Keck came to the city right before legal, where he had perfect timing and created that LaSalle, that's Las Palmas tax increment finance, so. I don't know how he knew to do it, but he did. So all
And I
that
think-
stuff you see out there
Right.
was,
And I think that's what's gonna be important about this, tying that to progress. Cause I think a majority of the town is on board in progressing forward, not trying to go back or anything, and maybe plan for the future. Because you never know, oil field activity can go down at,
Right.
any point, and planning to maybe bring in an industry that's gonna be more permanent.
there's a
that's
lot of
why.
things. For example, the city's been looking at zones that you would create a free trade zone out at the airport.
Right.
We're working on that, you know.
What's happening in Laredo?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, just north of Laredo.
Ensenad's becoming a suburb of Laredo now.
Mhm.
So, you know, how much further north are they gonna move? They're running out of room there. You know, sit out here and count how many trucks drive by every day. There's billions of dollars of commerce running down those roads. You know, you've got El Chato moving over here to the road because they want to.
Is that what they're building? Okay.
Right. You know,
I've
Taco
been trying to figure that
Palenque,
out.
you've got,
Right.
you know, is this gonna create heaven? No. But will it be a little bit better? I think so. That's up to the voters to decide. You know, you've got a school, look at the schools in Petula.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I grew up here. I remember what the schools were like that we had. You know, the thing, I don't think that you're ever going to be able to put Petula back into the sleepy little bottle that it used to be in. I think there's just, and yet I agree that it is driven by oil and gas, but there's other stuff going on too.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I
You
just
know.
want to make sure that that's being recognized as well.
It is.
And I think it mentioned about the planning and zoning, and of course, making sure that you kind of stay maintain that separation of business and industrial and
Yeah.
of course residential.
You have it, you know, I think if you talk to David or Larry Dovalina, who was here before them, and there were so many things that were wrong. You know, you just can't fix stuff overnight.
Right.
You know, we have lots of things in Catula that need to be fixed, you know. Something as important as the cemeteries.
Yeah.
You know, we're running out of space in cemeteries. That comes back to the city and the county. You know, that doesn't have anything to do with what you do here in the charter. I guess you could put something in the charter that you
But it's a
have
good
public
first step.
cemetery, but you know, these things are coming to the forefront. You've got the county, who has, like the city, moved into the 21st century. You know, you see things happening. You've got a sheriff department that is probably staffed better than it's ever been. The officers are making better pay. Does that eliminate crime? No. But it makes it better. You have a fire department here,
Amazing fire
the
department.
county. You know, could the city use one? I don't know. Probably doesn't. You probably don't need to duplicate it, but there's things you could do. You know, and so I think this to kind of finish what I was. This is just a tool among many tools.
Right.
And I think the good thing about it is it's up to the citizens. If they don't want it, they don't have to have it. They want to keep it the way it is, it's fine. But, you know, the mayor and the council decided, hey, you know, maybe they got it wrong the last time. Maybe we can come back and we can sell this better. Those are political decisions. Those aren't my decisions.
Right.
You know, I just do what I'm told to do. You know, but I can tell you that over the years, things have gotten much, much better. You've never run out of water in Catula. There's plenty of cities that have. You know, we just had the last meeting last Thursday, and they said they got to drill another water well. That one over the courthouse doesn't work anything. That big one that says Catula on it,
Right.
it's gone. You know,
The tower is operational, there's all the infrastructure on the ground is not being used because the actual water well is so good. The casing there has many holes that have burst through, we've already patched, again, somebody come out of Arizona and patched the well, that lasts another 3 years and a bunch of plus to push more holes. So what the city's trying to attempt to do is find a piece of property close to that site to actually drill another water well. So that I don't lose all the other infrastructure sitting on the property.
And those things are never gonna stop. Now, you don't drill water wells because you have a charter. And you don't finance any sales tax. You take out debt for that kind of things, but you have to pay that debt back. Somebody came by my house, David, that guy with the census today.
Yeah, he came by mine when I was gone earlier.
Maybe you've seen him.
Oh, yeah, I've been responding.
I got 2 questions. So, I mean, those are water development board things, but it's a package of things. I think that the city and the county have both shown, a lot of cooperation with each other. I think people pull in the right direction here. I've seen cities where they hate each other, county and city. And that hasn't really been the case here ever. You know, there's always gonna be a natural tendency to have some rivalry there, but I think in general, it has worked.
Actually, what I've seen common practice for them not to work together, and here we've got a working relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And you speak almost on a weekly basis, and we always agree, no, but we work together.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anybody else from the audience have any questions or concerns?
I got one question. People say, we already voted this down. How many times have we voted that? That's the only question.
Well, I think it's up to the politicians that decide to put it on the ballot.
Yeah.
And we're here tonight because the council decided they wanted to do it again.
That's what I understand that. I'm not going to start working and getting a whole new council.
Maybe. They have their reasons for doing it, and, you know, I think, you know, there's always a yes and a no.
Commissioners, or commission members, I asked y'all last week if we can go ahead and at the very least read the first 10 pages and write down any questions or concerns that y'all had on this previous draft. This is the one that got voted down, and to also, you know, speak with people in your kind of circles and see, you know, any concerns. Were there any concerns, any questions, anything that y'all guys, you know, could find in those 10 pages? Anything you need clarified, or maybe we might discuss changing?
I'd like to ask the gentleman that was against it. We were trying to meet with everybody in town that would have a comment, an idea, an opinion of this first document. And it appeared to us after it was over that there were a lot of misconceptions what was in it. And that's what I think we're trying to do now, is reopen it for more input. And if there is something against it, to voice what it is. And maybe we can reword it to where it's acceptable to everybody.
Sir, may I ask, have you read this previous draft document? And have you read the one that was voted down?
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to share specifically, anything that you didn't like about it, or? I see.
As long as you have quality people in there, and I'm not saying we don't.
Right.
Thing is, when you do something, it's gonna have good effects, and it's gonna have not so good effects too.
Yes, sir.
That's what I'm saying.
It's a fair assessment.
We didn't really change anything in that area about the power of the council. It stayed the same. We were trying to get a document, this home rule charter, that would allow our town, city, to change certain provisions of our charter if a business opportunity or some other change in our community developed where we needed to change our charter. We would have the ability to do that. If we're a general law, we are locked in only to what the state allows, no changes. And we're trying to make it where we could react better to a given situation.
I think in about 2006 or 7, Hondo approved their term. And I know that our firm helped them with that. And, you know, I don't know that Hondo's a whole lot different than it was that many years ago. I think there was a time when you would have looked at a city like Hondo as being much more prosperous, maybe. And now that's changed. You know, I think there was a time when Pearsall was kind of like, oh my God, you know, this shining city on a hill. And, you know, now Cotulla's more on par with, I mean, they still have more retail than Cotulla does. They have Starbucks and an H-E-B and a Walmart, you know, but we're not seen as this backwards placing, you know. And, you know, maybe there are people who want Cotulla to be the way it always was. I don't know. You know, time doesn't stand still for anybody. And, you know, I think that this protects the city as much as it grants whatever additional authorities that there might be, so that when people, if there are things that happen here that need to be addressed, I think the city has more flexibility. And I think what I'm saying is that it's a tool among many tools, okay? And it may not be the right tool. You know, the voters may not say they don't ever want one, and that's their absolute right to do that. But as long as you have elected officials who think that it might be a tool that they could use in a productive manner, then they have the right to at least ask the question. And I think that E.T.'s right. I think there was a lot of bad information. I know for a fact there were 2 things that were put in the Freedom Oasis Current that were absolutely incorrect, but nobody ever responded to it. You know? And those weren't articles that Mark wrote. Those were opinions.
These were paid political advertisements,
Right.
bought and paid for by people who were supporters or opponents of the charter, and they were not news reports. Please don't refer to them as articles. They were paid political
I
advertisements.
apologize, Mark.
We go to great lengths to ensure that we're accurate, and when these paid political advertisements were printed, they were clearly
With
filled
an agenda.
accusations and misleading information that in some cases supporters of the charter didn't step up and respond. So what was left out there was a large volume of misinformation.
Right.
But again, those were paid political advertisements. Those were not news reports.
Absolutely, and I don't mean to suggest that, but I am a dedicated reader of the Freedom Oasis Current, just so I can see what's happening around here. And these were people with an axe to grind. But the city, the politicians didn't do anything. Nobody stepped up, like Mark said. You know, in fact, they were factually wrong about what was going to be proposed. And hey, you know, that's politics. You know, if that's the way it works.
One reason, myself, why I didn't push it is nobody was trying to push this down anybody's throat. We did what we thought was best for the community to be able to respond to conditions on the ground. And we weren't out there to force anybody to like it. But it was a little disconcerting when there were inaccuracies abounding. And I still didn't see it as our position to fight for it. We weren't an army. We just put together what we thought was a good document.
If this thing gets approved and there's an election in November and they approve it, I don't think you're gonna see any difference from one day to the next. Maybe in 10 years, there'll be some things that have happened that might not have been able to happen before the actions that we took now. And I don't think that there's any will on the part of the elected council, as far as I know. They really can't do anything any differently than they already could.
And I want to mention this as well. Mr. Penny and I brought this up to you earlier. This charter doesn't give the city council any rights or any powers, and you've mentioned this, that are not already highlighted in either the state constitution or in the federal constitution. And I just wanted to reiterate that, just because we vote this in and, say this gets passed, there's nothing that we can put in here, or there's especially nothing that we can act on that would break the law. And so, one of the things that I had heard had a lot to do with not necessarily annexation, but specifically eminent domain. And, I'm sure you could go into hours worth of conversation about how that is a legal battleground, eminent domain. It's almost an ever-changing subject. But the city, basically, this charter doesn't grant the city of Cotulla any more power for eminent domain or to act on eminent domain on private properties than the state and the federal constitution already
Right, and
permit.
nor could it.
Right, nor could it.
The only eminent domain I'm aware of that the city ever used was at the airport. And that was through TxDOT that did that. When they were expanding the runways. Other than that, I don't believe the city's ever used it. At least not since I've been here. And I think one of the reasons why they did it at the airport is there was sometimes you have to do it to clear up title. They did do it on the creek, Mustang. And I think that there were some cases because there were some.
Steve,
Yes, sir.
there was a reason they did it at the airport, and it never got done. It was at the landowner's request that we had to start the process of eminent domain, and that was enough for him, for tax purposes, that he could do what he needed to do, and then we dropped it.
Right.
Nothing was eminent domain.
Yeah, I know that I wasn't involved in it. I know the ones on the Mustang Creek were to clear up title, which is another reason why you do it. And usually the owner says, hey, there were some tax issues or some things like that. So the city has never gone out and aggressively, doesn't have the money to do it.
Actually, on the Mustang Creek, 95% of the property was purchased outright. And that's how we acquired the property.
Yeah.
As Steve spoke a little earlier, the laws on annexation have changed. A city cannot legally annex anybody except for industrial business. The way annexation works nowadays is that we have to ask them if they would like to enter the city. They can tell us no, take a hike, and there's nothing we can do about it.
And that would be called a voluntary annexation.
There's articles that have been written by municipal leaders that basically say, why would anybody want it? Because the legislature cracked down. And I think, honestly, what may have been one of the reasons here was the idea of the payment of taxes. And that was a prior administration kind of looking at that as an opportunity. I don't know, so again, there are people who live in a place like Cotulla because they like a sleepy little town. And if that's what the citizens want, then that's what they can vote for.
I was, some of the information that I was told, Steve, is, some of the oil field refineries and different facilities around Cotulla will potentially double the ad valorem tax for the city of Cotulla. The property taxes that should pay, the value of the entire city could be doubled if we had a charter and we were able to move out towards these businesses and do something in lieu of tax. The potential is for the community here, you have a tax rate of 0.70 cents on 100 city tax. The potential is that possibly lowering or staying the same for many more years versus raising the tax. And this was the number one biggest motivation to have a charter. The charter gives us the ability to do this. You know, it gives us the ability to move out towards these businesses, to make contact with these businesses, and attempt to get them for what they are using in our city now, which is our roads, our infrastructure, our water. That, of course, like you said, the oil field came, we made money, but they're also using our infrastructure and they're aging our infrastructure. So we're trying to get that back for the citizens here so that we can grow our infrastructure more than it is now.
And ad valorem taxes are high in Cotulla. They are. You know, and if you look around at other cities, they're lower in some other cities. But then you look at Cotulla, and I think when Larry was here, our municipal utility rates are lower than anybody else's.
I think at this point, we're the lowest in the state, our utility rates. I don't think there's anybody cheaper than we are. Dilly,
Yeah.
you go to Dilly and they're way higher.
Our firm was working with Poteet when they ran out of water because they weren't doing things like Cotulla has done in a forward-thinking manner. Look, it's not for everybody. You know, I think it's an exercise in democracy, and if the citizens don't want it, then they don't want it. You know, and if, as Martin said out there, you know, how many times do we have to vote on it? Well, I guess if they voted down twice, maybe they won't do it again. I don't know. You know, I honestly I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But you know, we do what we're asked to do. You all are on here because you're volunteering your time and learning about a new subject and getting an opportunity to say, well, we tried, you know, and you know, that I think ET's correct. You know, I think that there's no intention to grab more power. You know, I don't think it's really possible.
It's really not.
But I can tell you, you know, one of the things that while I was here and have been here is the annexation south of the Nueces River. You know, and that's improved people's lives. They've got water and sewer out there. People that were drinking God knows what out there. You know, and you know the love station, and you know you may see something nice. There's talk here of hospitals, there's talk of HEBs, there's talk of whatever. Those things will come to a city that's prepared to have them. And if they're not prepared, they'll go somewhere else.
Thank you. Again, I want to come back around to my initial question. Has anybody had any concerns or comments or whatever, anything that maybe we want to discuss about changing on the first 10 pages of the draft of the last year's draft? Go ahead.
Because of the hour and all we've covered already,
You want to go ahead and?
I think we may ought to just wait and discuss it at the next meeting.
I was gonna ask, the next meeting will be on the 8th? Is that what we're looking at?
So yes, the
We're
next
looking at the
meeting,
Second and the 4th,
right, so
Thursday. So that'll be next week?
Let's skip the next week because of this week. Make it 3 weeks
let's
from
look at
now.
this, okay.
And we're not in a rush to do this.
No, we're not trying to get this done by,
Do it once a month.
Yeah, I mean, you guys
The
decide
15th?
how you want to do it. I think
22nd, yes.
I think it's
22nd.
worked well in the past when you've had meetings without me being here.
Yep.
You know, and I don't need to be here. I think you all understand what
Yeah.
you're supposed to be doing.
Well, that would put us on track.
And
We often got a set of questions together to give you, and then
Yeah.
you'd answer them for us.
That's right.
So real quick, I'm looking here on the calendar. March 7th would be the first Thursday of March, and that would bump into,
No, but we're looking at the fourth Thursday of February, which would be the 22nd, right?
oh, that's right. We had said the second and fourth. You're right.
2
You're
weeks
right.
Later,
Right.
would be-
Okay. So yeah, we'll come back on the 22nd, and then after that it'll be the 14th, and then after that the 28th. Okay.
so I'm generally here 2 or 3 days every week, usually Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So, I can change that if I need to, but that's generally how I plan the schedule.
Okay.
And just a note, I know there was some vote here about when to have the meetings. That's really not a vote, Bianca. That wasn't on the agenda.
Okay.
That was just the chairman getting their opinions.
On February 22nd, I already have an obligation in Pass.
Okay.
I planned on coming to all the meetings, but it's not necessary, but I would like to be here to answer questions. My position though is I don't want to influence the commission in any way, but if you all have a question, I'll be more than happy to answer it.
Yeah.
I won't be available that day.
Okay. Mr. Pena, is there any way that you might be available that day?
I'm sorry, what day is it?
The 22nd of February.
Thursday.
That would be the Thursday. That'd be the,
Oh yeah, I'll probably be around.
okay. So that'll work. We'll have him around to answer any kind of questions for that meeting.
Yeah,
That'll work out.
I think honestly, that this should be driven more by you guys. You know, if I'm here, I'm like, well, I know everything. No, I don't know everything. I know what the law is, but how you guys want to implement it, that's your choice.
Chairman, is it gonna be at 6 o'clock the meeting?
Yes, sir. That way we're,
You know,
If the city council doesn't meet that night, does it?
No, the 22nd, not, on the, what was the next? day?
7th, or rather the 14th,
The 14th, they do meet,
March
March 14th.
14th.
If we meet on the same day, we may want to start half hour earlier,
You want to go ahead and do a 5:30?
but not for the 22nd.
No,
Right, for the
we're okay.
14th.
yeah.
That scheduling is going to be fun. We'll
I think an hour.
put it on the schedule each, or we'll put it on the calendar each day, you know, every time that we come back. For the moment, let's go ahead and come back on the 22nd at 6, and then from there we'll figure it out. How's that sound? That'll work.
I think you guys, especially people that have done it before, you guys know what you need. We'll draft it, we'll put it together, staff's available, ask the questions. If you want to totally become an expert on city charters, you can do that. Honestly, there's not that much out there. You know, it's kind of a flexible idea, so.
Does anyone want a
I
motion?
move, we adjourn.
Second.
Copy that. ET motions to adjourn. Noe seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Adjourn.